The still calm waters of ponds contain a higher diversity of wildlife than other freshwater bodies, such as like ditches or rivers. This is basically because they're sort of still and more or less constant. The water does go up and down depending on the seasons and droughts and things, but things stay generally quite the same in a pond. You haven't got like a constant flow of water, so it's much better for invertebrates like insects and things to lay their eggs in and for their larvae to live in. The same with amphibians. It's like still water. Their tadpoles aren't going to get washed away. And for like animals like deer or hedgehogs or badgers, getting to the edge of a pond is usually easier than sort of trying to work out how to get down a riverbank. I mean, rivers do have a place to drink from and things, but a pond is just easier, you know, to get to. It tends to have a lot more stable environment for wildlife, particularly if you have kind of deep and shallow bits, a good amount of each, because then you've got the different niches for different types of plants and animals to live in. And of course, the deeper the pond, the bigger the pond, the more types of fish you can have in a pond. So you know, you have like a great deal of diversity from animals, but also with plants, because you've got a stable environment. You haven't got a river sort of eating bits away and depositing materials and washing things away. You have a kind of still area where many different types of water plants, like marginal plants, can grow and not be fighting against the current all the time. So in a sort of a pond environment, you do get a lot more diversity of wildlife. Naturally, rivers bend and meander, and then the meanders get too big and get cut off, and they form these like little oxbow lakes all over the floodplains at the bottom of river valleys. But quite often these oxbow lakes, which are like just basically loads of ponds of different shapes and sizes, get filled in and sort of just ploughed in. Like this valley here, there's no oxbow lakes at all. They've all just been just ploughed over and made into good grazing land, a lot of diversity is lost because without these oxbow lakes and without all these little ponds, you lose all this different environment and all this diversity, because the still water does create a lot better place for so many different types of wildlife, both plant and animal. Here, this is like replacing a lot of the oxbow lakes that were here, a nice big, mostly shallow pond, which does get topped up if the river floods, and there's just loads more wildlife in here than there is in the pond for sure. It's just so much more stable for plants and for animals. It's not got riverbanks, it's not being swept away. So it's kind of nice to allow the rivers to do this. Left to its own devices, the river will naturally go back into a more braided system. Naturally, new oxbow lakes will form. So eventually the floodplain would be more of a kind of pondy, diverse environment. But it's quite good if really these environments are left alone. I mean, if it's grazing land, you can still graze around oxbow lakes. There's no need to plough them over. And it's always good to have as much wildlife as possible. Each different pond has its own different environment depending on the conditions, the soil type, what the environment's like, if it's in a woodland, if it's in a grassland, if it's on a floodplain, and the soil type and things like that. So there's a lot of different things which will determine what grows in the pond, also kind of the depth and how big it is. And some ponds dry out seasonally, some ponds don't, you know, and other ponds have got deep bits and some ones haven't, and some are affected by flooding and some aren't. So all these different factors go into kind of what's going to live in the pond. So every pond is unique really. I mean, this one here is on like a floodplain, but our other ponds aren't. They're sort of like catching rainwater higher up. All the rainwater that comes down eventually gets caught in this one last of all. So they're really good for like catching rainwater, and that's really good. So far this pond is the best for wildlife, and I think this is because it's right next to the river, so there's lots of water plants there already, and they've got this much more stable environment here to grow in, so they've just kind of spread in from the river and the surrounding swamp, whereas the other ones are further away and it's taking longer for these water plants to get there, but they will get there eventually. And so the other ponds are kind of deeper, and one's more in a woods. This one's more out in like an open area. So all three of our ponds are going to be very, very different in regards to what lives in them. Also, I suppose the sort of the size of a pond determines how many fish you have in the pond as well. And a little pond would have maybe just sticklebacks, but a big pond could have like all sorts of other fish that will survive in a still area, and without kind of a flow of water. So you get like yeah, different things in different ponds. Definitely you get way more diversity of aquatic plants in a pond compared to a river. Just simply because you haven't got any current washing things away, any force of water eating away at the riverbank, and deposition from the river, all the sediment burying plants. So it's like a constant level. There's no erosion or deposition, it's just kind of just stable and constant. And of course you've got all the different depths for different types of plants that like to grow in different depths of water, and then you've got the marshy bit around it, and then the dry bits. You've got a huge kind of load of diversity around a pond, and in this stable environment you get all sorts of plants growing. And this one's only been here a few years, but as it establishes, more and more plants get here, and of course more plants, more food for more animals, more diversity of plants, more animals will come here as well. So as well as being a more stable environment for animals as well, it's more animals still will come here simply because of the high diversity of plants. The more established the pond is, the more diversity and the more of everything that gets here. So it's yeah, very good to have this kind of stable pond environment to just really maximise on biodiversity and encourage as much wildlife as possible to the ponds. A lot of the plants will grow in rivers, yeah, but they've got to struggle against the elements a bit. In the pond you can get huge colonies of plants like these bulrushes behind here, and they sort of spread out and create their own kind of environment as well. And then there's the nesting water birds like the ducks and the moorhens. They just much prefer to be in like a pond environment as well, because it's just way more stable, and it creates more, there's more wildlife in here, so there's more like to eat, and it's sort of just better all round really. And all this different diversity of plant life and still water that you get in a pond provides sheltered breeding areas, mainly for like sort of insects and amphibians. I think in a river you do get tadpoles and frogs in rivers, and you do get dragonflies in rivers, but you don't get anything like the amount you do in a pond, because they don't get swept away, and you've got loads more plants and things for them to hide in. Like this is just perfect for invertebrates and amphibians to lay eggs in. Really nice, kind of shallow corner pond, lids and things where it's all nice and still and safe, and you've got kind of less to eat them, less gets swept away, they've got more to hide in, more diversity of plants and things to eat. So it's just you get a much bigger amphibian population, much bigger dragonfly population. But mosquitoes do tend to be controlled if you have fish in the pond. So if the pond's too small, if it's only seasonal, then you probably get lots of mosquitoes breeding in those. But where you've got any kind of fish, they will just eat the mosquitoes, so that's okay. So yeah, we have tons of dragonflies, more types of dragonflies every year. They're very hard to film, but every summer they kind of come and buzz around the pond and like hunt other creatures. And we have like massive frog party here for months in the spring, just loads of frogs, masses of frog spawn. So in the river, it's just not as easy for these animals to reach such high numbers. And of course, frogs are very good for eating garden pests, and dragonflies as well. And there's lots of things that live in the pond, lots of things that drink from the pond. So it is really, really good to have ponds. So ponds generally have a much higher density of invertebrates and amphibians than do rivers or ditches. It's a lot more likely that with a good sort of established pond environment with many kind of diverse niches, that you will encourage rarer species. If you're encouraging like more diversity, then the chances are that some of that diversity will be rarer, particularly as it becomes more established. And this is always like this water plants, swamp plants, grassland plants, woodland plants, whatever environment it is. The more it has, the more it's going to encourage, and over time you will encourage all sorts of things. You know, like every year we see different types of birds. We have a kingfisher that comes here. There's woodpeckers that go in the trees nearby. There's more hens, different types of dragonfly. Every year we notice different types of insect that come. And so and different types of plants. So kind of the more of an undisturbed place that you have, the more time it has to settle, the more niches, the more it will encourage different things to come here. You know, so you've got an environment that they like. You've got a good choice of things for them to eat, and so that they're going to come. You know, the wildlife will come if the habitat for them exists. A pond is much easier than a river for many animals to drink from. You think birds will sometimes fly down and grab some water, and it's possible for them to do that on a river, but you've got the river with its currents and things, and it's much easier to do that in a pond. Deer and other mammals, hedgehogs and badgers, it's much easier to sort of just come down to the edge of a pond where it's usually quite not too steep, rather than sort of trying to work out how to get down a riverbank. And so it's a much more of a nice source of water that's like always there, that's kind of easy and safe to get to. So it's when animals know that there's a source of water there, they'll kind of want to live nearby. So since we've had the ponds, we have noticed that hedgehogs come here much more often, and kind of the deer do sort of make a detour to come here because it's sort of easier for them to go climbing down the riverbanks. I mean, sometimes rivers have bits where it's easy to get to, but ponds are generally much more of a gentle gradient around them, much more established. And of course, because you have more diversity of plants as well, there's more for them to eat. And if there's whether they're herbivores or predators, there's going to be more choice of things for them to eat here. So this all round attracts wildlife, a pond. It's very, very good to have one. And of course they also catch water, so they've got a resource, and also they prevent or they reduce flooding, because as flood water comes down, a lot of it gets caught in the ponds, and then there's less of a surge going downstream. So ponds are very good. So I hope you liked today's video. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you press the little me that's somewhere down there, you'll be able to see all my other videos. And if you have any questions, please ask, and I shall see you next time.